welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered Wrestling. It's Tuesday, so it's time for our question of the week, and then by everyone, we're joined by Tim. Hi, Tim, how you doing, mate?
Not too bad, Lee. Not too bad. What about yourself?
So obviously, this past weekend, we had the return of R-Truth. Triple H just put it out there that it was all part of the plan, and they've been working us all week. There's lots of rumours going around that obviously it was down to the backlash they were getting from the fans. So my question is, should wrestling fans have a say-so and put pressure on wrestling companies like TKO to change their storyline plans?
If I'm honest with you, there's no quick answer to this. So I'm going to immediately say they should listen to the fans, but I don't think they should always follow the fans. There have been cases where it's worked out all right, but I think that's not always the best way to do business.
No, and I sort of agree because I get it, it's an interactive product. We should have a voice because we're buying the tickets. But then when someone like The Rock come along and enforced his opinion, we all went mad and said it's out of order. But then what gives us the right to sit there and dictate the show?
I agree. I think what we've got to remember is sometimes us as fans, we enjoy the product, but if it was all too predictable, if it was everything that we wanted, we'd get bored of it very quickly. Yes, we did ask for Truth to come back, and much like you, I've read the reports. I saw Chris Van Vliet's question to Triple H about whether this was planned or whether it was that. And to be fair to Triple H, he didn't confirm or deny. He just said stories just keep going, which would be a typical Triple H thing. A lot of people I've spoken to have said it was a bad idea to sack him. I don't think it was a storyline idea at all. I think when we look at it, the heartfelt messages that went out from everybody, and we're not just talking about like management, it was everybody was making comments, tell us that this wasn't them going, we're going to work you, we're going to make sure that this is the story. They actually made that decision to then switch it round and then go, okay, I think we made a mistake, which is the right way to do it because they definitely did make a mistake. I think they just have to be careful that we're not going to go down that line too much.
Yeah, and another reason why I didn't think it was a work is it was reported in the mixes and releases with Carlito. That's people's livelihood. You can't release like two people and then put a work person in. It just makes a mockery of them people being released. And again, like you said, it's good getting what we want, but then what's next? Like, going back to Daniel Bryan with the Yes Movement, WrestleMania 30, being inserted into that, it was a great night, WrestleMania night. And then it was like, okay, so what's next now? Well, obviously beforehand, they would have had their story planned out. Triple H, and even when Vince was in charge, they said they plan for next year's WrestleMania, the night after WrestleMania. So they've got their map. And then by listening to the fans, it's good to give them the feel-good moments, but it totally throws out. And then I feel like it can then disrupt the product further on down the line. Like we see with The Rock inserting himself into last year's WrestleMania. Cody didn't get to finish his story, but that was what we was building up to for a year.
Yeah, when I say to you it's a strange one, the Daniel Bryan movement was great, and you can see it on the Raw where the Yes movement, which WWE said that they said was going to go, it worked, but much like you, we had the booing at the Royal Rumble 2004 finish when Rey Mysterio, a beloved hero, everybody loves, gets booed because they think it should be Daniel Bryan involved in that, to then insert him into that match. And much like you, it was a great match. It probably needed Daniel Bryan in there, but there was no story afterwards.
With WWE being live and weekly, because obviously I always link to when people go, oh, you like wrestling, but it's a soap for mainly men. But like with soaps are written and recorded 6 to 8 weeks in advance. So even though people can voice their opinions, you can't change the storyline. Where this gives too much freedom to do it, and then like you said, it doesn't always work out, or we get what we want for the moment, and then we're stuck.
Yeah, I think if they look at it, whilst The Rock did change that, and we were due to have the Roman Reigns Rock match, which we all wanted, we also wanted the Cody moment. So they had to pivot. And that for me made sense because that was more about what the story they'd been telling before somebody else got involved.
Then going back to that, we've now missed out on that Rock Roman match. Yes, they may revisit it down the line, but I don't think they will because both guys are getting on a bit and it wouldn't be as good as what it would have been last year. And that's all because of we then voiced our opinion as fans going against what they were trying to push to us.
Yeah, but I think that one especially was a lot of egos trying to pick. They'd picked the story beforehand, then Dwayne had come in and said, I think this match would work. And again, had Cody not have won the Rumble, that would have been perfect, but it didn't work out like that.
Yeah, at the beginning of this conversation, I actually thought it would be an easy, simple, and in my opinion, no, the fans shouldn't dictate what happens weekly. But the more we've spoken about it, the more I think actually it is a hard debate to have.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back even further, we look at the Matt Hardy issue that they had with Edge. Fans went on outcry at that moment, and we got our way. And what happened? They buried Matt Hardy as a result of us getting our way. So sometimes it doesn't work. There are times when it does work and it needs to work. Like the R-Truth stuff, if we could circle all the way back to it, I think that will work in the long term. I think the reason and it is worth mentioning, they didn't actually release Ron Killings. His contract actually expired or was expiring. They just told him they weren't going to negotiate for a new one. From what I've read, they've negotiated for somewhere in the middle, what the WWE were prepared to pay him and what he wanted. So it works out for both parties. So before everyone says, oh my God, he was released and they brought him back. No, his contract expired. They let it run down. And also that's the reason they let some of these other people go. It wasn't that they were being kicked out. It's that their contracts were expiring and they chose not to extend it. So this one works for a different reason because both parties have now agreed and they can probably go back to the story that we thought they were going to tell a couple of weeks ago when Ron came out as Ron Cena. I think Ron Killings will be the guy that turns John Cena.
Yeah, and it is a weird one though because we've been predicting that for the last couple of weeks, and then obviously by then they, in their heads, were going to let his contract run out and he was going. That obviously ain't the plan for the year. It could be now, but it obviously weren't going to be because of WWE were letting his contract run out. I just think WWE and TKO got scared because the way the fans were reacting. And he was hot property for 2 days. Like all these indie shows wanted him. There was rumours that TNA wanted him. Obviously, AEW would have put some feelers out, and I think they were just scared that they were going to lose. But it still didn't make sense to me because his merch, his Ron Cena merch, was like one of the highest selling merch of that week, and they're still going to let his contract run out. it was baffling. But yeah, it is going to work. But it obviously proves that wasn't the plan for the year.
Well, I think I'm gonna blow your mind a little bit. I don't think his contract had actually expired. I think he's still been contracted with WWE.
Yeah, I think he had 2 weeks left.
Yeah, so it's not that he turned around and his contract had expired and they were saying, see ya. I think it was more a case of his contract had expired. They told him, look, we're not going to meet what you want. We're just going to let you go. And then the outcry came out. He showed, and the fans showed what he was worth. So he's probably getting paid more than what they were originally going to offer him, but it's less than what he was on before. So I think that's the important thing to remember.
And do you also think then that this was actually a tactical move by him because he put the tweet out on his social media, knowing that his contract's about to run out and he's not getting what he feels like he's worth? Because he's the one who broke the news. WWE didn't break the news. So that might have been a good business move by him, really.
It may have been. I don't think it was. I think he saw an opportunity to strike while the iron was hot. Remember, he was released. I can't. Was it the Sunday? And
Yeah, the
he'd been in
1st of
a
June.
match. Yeah, wrestling on the Friday night. So it was the right idea for him to come out and say, "Look, I'm being released. Well, my contract's up. I want to thank everybody I'm here." He gives people and he keeps himself in the public eye for a little bit longer. If the WWE just let him run his contract out, which I would assume is what they were originally going to do, nobody's going to pick him up because nobody will have seen him for 2 weeks.
But like I said earlier on, I thought we would have an answer by the end of our conversation, and we obviously haven't. So, do you guys think? Should wrestling fans be able to pressure wrestling companies into leading their storylines? Let us know in the comments. And Tim, I will see you next week for Raw and SmackDown review.
See you next week.